Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Now, a couple things that people seem to keep bringing up in my comment section, and it gives me something to talk about, but it's also an important point, right? The first one is somebody commented and said, again, Maitreya is Raj Patel or Raj Patel is Maitreya. I can't remember how they worded it, but it doesn't really matter, right? And I did put up a couple videos about my opinion of Raj Patel and Maitreya, and do I think he's Maitreya or not? I'll say again, and not go into quite as much depth about it this time. I don't think Raj Patel is Maitreya. For one, when I first saw him on the clips on NPR, he was speaking so rapidly that it was hard for me to follow. I had to go back and kind of listen to it. And even to this day, I know what his intention. I think I know his intention. And I also, kind of got a gist of what he was saying. But in terms of quoting it and using it and applying it to my life, no. There was nothing that he said that I could really look at it like that. And he was speaking so fast that, and I'm a fast talker and I have to kind of slow down my speech pattern, but to listen to him talk, I had to kind of go back and listen to it. Like, what did he say? And the people who have seen Maitreya, like myself, you don't get that impression from Maitreya. It's like it hits you right in the heart, when he talks. And it's so simple that you can remember it. It's almost like little sound bites, What you sow, so shall you reap. Now, I know that's in the Bible and people accredit that to Jesus, which is fine, but it was Maitreya speaking through Jesus that said it. It was a 7-word phrase that he used to describe, hands down, the biggest, most universal cosmic law that affects humanity. He narrowed it down to 7 words, and it wasn't watered down. It was the truth of the matter. You know what I'm saying? When he speaks, it's like a Mozart piece. There's nothing that you can add to it or take away. You can't really. It's truth, and that's the way that Christ speaks. Now, the other thing is, and number 2, is years after this whole thing with Raj Patel went out, I was talking with a very good friend of mine who lived in New York, who saw Raj Patel years before all this went down. He was a part of a group of people that were discussing social issues in New York for a weekend, and my friend just happened to be there, interacted with him, talked with him, thinks he's a great guy, thinks he's onto something, but knew at that point that he was just a regular person like everybody else, wasn't anything special. But that was her opinion. I didn't, I'm just going off of what she says, but she told me that years ago, like, hey, she goes, nobody listens to her when she tells him that, like, hey man, I saw Raj Patel. I know he's just an ordinary guy. And then the other thing is that Benjamin Creme denied it, said it wasn't he's not Maitreya. He had to eventually say that. He didn't want to, but I could tell he was trying to hold off as long as possible. But it just kind of got out of hand. He had to kind of take care of it. And even Raj Patel came out and said it very forcefully that he was not Maitreya. And Benjamin Creme always said in all of his literature that Maitreya would never deny it. He would also never confirm that he was Maitreya. He would find a way to say it in a way that it was not confirming nor denying it. And so when they came out and denied it, I was like, well, that's it. I wasn't doubting it anyway, but at the same time, when they denied it. Now, I say this jokingly, right? But would it make things easier if Maitreya was Raj Patel in terms of recognizing him? Absolutely. It would make it a lot easier, right? But I don't think that he is, and that's just my opinion, but I don't think that he is Maitreya. Now, the other question is, or not question, but more of a statement that kind of comes up, is about needing links and times and what names is Maitreya using on TV and stuff. I touched on this before, right? But when I watch the news for about a half hour at a clip. There's only so much of the news I can take, and I usually watch the news about the certain events that are going on in the day. And I usually watch it on my phone. I'll Google an event, a plane crash or, whatever, or a typhoon in some area or some political thing going on. But I usually kind of watch it in a little bit. I don't spend all my day watching watching CNN or Fox or MSNBC or whatever. Because when they start getting into the whole opinion news, it turns me right off. So I don't really watch those programs. because I think they're just filling time, and it's just theater is all it is. I kind of want to know what's going on in the world, and then, okay, I'll go on to my day, right? So I don't really look for it like that. And I don't scour the internet or scour the TV channels trying to find Maitreya. I have a very dear friend who works with Share National, and she was doing some outreach work at an event. And this woman just happened to come up, and she saw that picture of him, and she goes, I've seen that guy on TV that you were talking about. She goes, he doesn't look anything like that picture. And then this is the picture that they had up of him in Nairobi. She goes, doesn't look anything like him. He's not even talking about the same things that you're talking about. He's talking about the political scenes, political, problems that were going on. But she said, I saw him on the news. She goes, I know that's him. She goes, it was just the way he was talking. I knew that was him, right? So she was convinced. Now, she's the only one that I know of that has seen him on TV. Now, she never told my friend what channel it was, what time it was, because I know my friend never asked. Now, Benjamin Creme, when he was alive, and and Maitreya came out, and even before Maitreya came out, right before it, he was very explicit in his instructions to the group of people that followed him that we were not supposed to give away any information about Maitreya on TV, what channel he was. If somebody even asked us point blank, was that Maitreya that I saw on TV? And we went and did the research, and if we knew it or didn't know it even, like if we saw it and said, yeah, that's Maitreya, or if we saw it and, nah, it's not Maitreya, we weren't supposed to say it either way. We were only supposed to say, what do you think? Now, for a person who doesn't know and trust Benjamin Creme and hasn't followed this information, it might seem like a cop-out. But the reason why Benjamin Creme was so explicit about it, okay, about not giving out that information, and I will never give out that information when I see Maitreya on TV, and if I'm still doing these videos, I will not give any information out about it, because it's important for every one of us to recognize Maitreya for what he's saying, but to recognize it for ourselves and not have somebody tell us this. We don't know how massive this event is for not only the world, but it is for each one of us individually. And so when somebody were to tell you, yes, that person's Maitreya, or no, that person's not Maitreya, that person would be robbing the other person of the opportunity to discover it for themselves. And we have to have a heartfelt response to it. We have to intuit that that's who Maitreya is. Now, when I talk about about him being on TV, I always kind of preface it with he's not wanting followers. He's not wanting, because people think that he is the Antichrist. So people naturally think that he's out there trying to gather all these followers as much as he can and steal them away from the church and all that kind of stuff, or whatever they think that he's doing. And so when I talk about him on TV over and over again, because there are people that hear these videos and they don't, I feel the need that I need to keep saying it over and over again to people, because I'm not trying to speak to the same group of people. Hopefully other people are kind of listening to these videos and take it for what it is or whatever, right? But it's important to understand that Maitreya is on TV not trying to gather devotees. He's not trying to change anybody's beliefs. He's only trying to get us to change our structures so that it fits into the truth that we are all one. Because our economic structures, our political structures, our social structures are not representing the fact that the truth that we are one. They're representing the ways of the past, which is competition, greed, and those kind of things. That's why we have the problems that we have in the world today. So it really isn't important to point out that guy's Maitreya or that one isn't Maitreya. And like I said, when I see him on TV, I will never bring it up. Even if somebody asked me, my mom even told me, well, you're going to tell me. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just going to ask you what you think. What do you think? Because that's what Benjamin Creme said is the most important thing, is for them to think it through for themselves. So that's why when Benjamin Creme finally had to come out with the whole thing with Raj Patel and say he wasn't him, right? He did that for a reason, because it was getting so far out of hand that he had to finally just nip it in the bud and say, no, that's not him. I could tell he didn't want to do that. He wanted people to kind of come up on its own. That's why he didn't just come right out and say that that's not Maitreya. It took a while. I don't know how long, but finally he has had to make some announcements and say that wasn't him. You know, because even the media was just jumping all over it, and it was affecting Raj Patal's life. It was affecting, and everything. So when it comes to Maitreya, and then the other question is, what do I mean by my Maitreya experiences? I've had many experiences with Maitreya, and I put the videos up in a playlist so you can kind of hear it for what it is. But Maitreya and any one of these masters, we have no idea the depth and the breadth of their consciousness and how they can operate. They're not ordinary people that have to live a life and go to the bathroom and eat. And this, most of these masters don't eat. They never sleep. You know what I'm saying? And if they eat, it's only in a social situation here or there. They can live for hundreds of years or thousands of years, or in the case of Maitreya, hundreds of thousands of years. They never die, And I've talked even about, digress for a second, the whole Jesus's life and the Buddha's life in the Bible and then in the Buddhist text were all references to the path that every one of us are taking toward our own divinity. So Jesus's life was representative of that. There was things in his life that were put in the Bible specifically, like the birth, the baptism, the transfiguration, of course, the crucifixion and the resurrection, were the 5 symbols in the Bible that happened historically, but they were written in a way to symbolize the path that every one of us are taking, whether we realize it or not, or will take, whether we realize it or not, the path to our own divinity. And these masters have fulfilled it. Every one of those 5 great expansions of consciousnesses or initiations, as they put it. So these masters don't live like we live. They're resurrected masters. They're not ordinary people. So Maitreya can be in London talking to somebody face to face, wherever he is, right? Or they could be in the Himalayas or wherever, if it's a different master or whatever, saving this person from an accident, healing this other person over here, helping this, divert some kind of cosmic, event that could, harm all of humanity, because the forces of evil are doing their thing or whatever it happens to be. They could be doing millions of things simultaneously. And at the same time, somebody like myself could be walking into a mall and there is a person that comes up who is a guise of one of these masters that this master created, like Maitreya. Every time I saw Maitreya, I didn't see him physically the way that he is in London. He created a guise, a person with his little bit of his consciousness that he can kind of speak through to me at that time. And it's not just unique to me, but it's, other people too. And it could even be the people who are listening to these videos that don't know about it. But they do this all the time, where where somebody sees a homeless person on the street, or a woman or a man or a young person, old person. And I have, a lot of experiences like this with Maitreya, but it was a guise of who Maitreya is. It's just a little bit of his consciousness. And I had to recognize him for that being Maitreya, if that makes any sense. And and you look at it, it's kind of like there were some scenes in the Bible where they did that, right? Right after Jesus, right after the resurrection, Mary and some of the other women, right, were going to anoint Jesus's body, and they see the gardener, right? And they all recognized him as Jesus, but he was a gardener, right? And he said, "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" That was a master that did that. Whether it was the master Jesus or Maitreya, I don't know. They never said in the Bible, and I don't think anybody's ever asked Benjamin Creme who it was. But it was a master. Anytime somebody has an angel experience, in quotations, it's always a master who is communicating with them or helping them or saving them, always. But it doesn't necessarily look the way the master, whoever that master is, looks. Does that make sense? So I hope this answers the question, and I like these questions because it allows me to talk a little bit more in depth about certain things, about these stories. But Maitreya has been on TV for years now, but it's up for us to recognize him. Just like it is when somebody has a Maitreya experience, in quotation marks. It's up for that person to recognize that was Maitreya. There's a gift to that for that person, and it's not always easy to recognize these masters. Sometimes it's very easy. But it's going to be eventually in the not so distant future, I think. I don't know when, I don't have a specific date when. But eventually more and more people will start to recognize them as being something extraordinary. They might not recognize them as Maitreya or these masters, but they'll start to say, there's something about this guy that I heard on TV. He really makes a lot of sense, or whatever it happens to be. I'm convinced of it. That's going to be people's reactions to it. Other people will see Maitreya on TV, hear his words, and be totally against it because it doesn't stand for what they want. So you'll have both sides, and you'll have people arguing it back and forth, just like they do on TV about any political thing that goes on, right? They'll argue it back and forth about what he's saying. But more and more people will recognize that his path to peace is the only path to peace. And then, but it all starts from each one of us, and nobody can sit there and tell you, or should tell you, that that's Maitreya, or you should listen to him because he's the Christ and stuff like this, because it robs those people of the opportunity to come up on this on their own way. And I know it might sound like a cop-out, but it isn't. And we'll eventually understand that, yes, that it was the best way that we could do it. Because we all have free will. And that's why we're living in the world that we're living in, is because we're all misusing our free will, right? We're all using it for selfish reasons and not for the good of others, right? But when you see Maitreya on TV, don't tell anybody else that you saw him. Just watch it. Listen to what he says. Take it in. See if it's something that you think is true or not. And if you don't, then don't. But it's not for any one of us to tell somebody else that's Maitreya or this is the link you should go to. And like I said, honestly, I have not seen him on TV. Honestly, I have no idea what links you could find him on. But given my own personal experiences and given what I've read from Benjamin Creme and what other people have said that they've seen, like this person who said that they saw him on TV, I know he's on TV doing his thing. It's just going to be a matter of time before all of us really realize it. I hope this helps. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.